Hi, this is Brass Check, and we're recording this on Friday, February 4th, 2022. And I actually recorded this late last night at the end of an 18-hour day, literally, and I hit the wrong button and I erased it. So maybe you're going to get a better version. Uh, let's hope. So, what do I want to talk about today? First, some good news. I have got two, count them, two credible helpers now, and they're capable and they are doing magnificent things for me. So we're going to be able to get a whole lot more done. I've been operating here with a tech helper who's capable, but not inspired. Uh, so no thinking involved on his part, which is tough for me, frankly. But now I got two guys that can think and do and write and edit and research videos and help assemble videos and all this stuff that I've been doing. So that means I can do more stuff. And that's very good news indeed. And if you are a supporter, if you're one of the people who pays for your subscription, this is where the money's going. And believe me, it's money well spent. I am thrilled. We also have a very exciting world-changing project coming up very soon, which I'll announce hopefully next week. And I'm going to be specifically asking for subscribers to kick in for it. You'll see. It's huge. It's going to put these evil doers back on their heels, if not on the ground. Anyway, I want to talk about mass, whatever they're calling it, mass psychosis formation or mass formation psychosis. This appeared finally. Joe Rogan took the crack pipe out of his mouth and started helping us. And by us, I mean humanity. Don't forget, Rogan was the guy back when this started that had that University of Minnesota liar, demon, and scam artist on for hour after hour after hour selling the terror and the fraud. I mailed his people every single day for the last year and a half with the information that we've been gathering, and we've never even received the courtesy of a reply. That's Joe Rogan. Don't be fooled by this guy. He's a sellout. Anyway, he somehow, I guess he found religion. Maybe when he himself got COVID, I don't know. Who knows? Who cares? By the way, we can't depend on the Joe Rogans of the world. We really need all the people out there who have even two people on their email list to come together and do the promotions that need to be done to get the real facts out. Sitting around waiting for Joe Rogan or anybody else is a grave mistake. Anyway, he had Malone on, Dr. Malone on, finally, like a year and a half too late, but he had him on. And one of the things Malone talked about is this mass formation psychosis, and the researcher behind that is Matthias Desmet. Now, I have to point out that Brass Check did a thorough, detailed, granular explanation of what mass hypnosis is and stage hypnosis and the whole technology of hypnosis back in April of 2020. That's nearly 2 years ago. Um, and we're going to talk a little about Matthias and his insights. On the one hand, uh, his description of the mechanism by which large groups go crazy is brilliant. It's poetic, it's scientific, it's thorough, it's clear. It couldn't be better. So 3 cheers for that. Again, a little odd that he didn't. That you understand. This is a professional social psychologist. Like he gets paid full time. That's all he does. And it took him over a year to wake up and see what was obvious to tens of millions of human beings, hundreds of millions of human beings. I don't know. But anyway, better late than never. But here's the odd thing about him. When interviewed, uh, he and people ask him, well, was this um, designed? Was this planned? Was this somebody's scheme to induce this mass psychosis in among many members of society? And his answer is, gee, I don't know. I can't go there. On the one hand, on the other hand, blah, 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 blah. No, Matthias, you cannot be serious if you think this thing happens spontaneously. You just, I mean, you're an articulate guy. You've described the process, not the process, but you've described the end result of mass psychosis brilliantly. The fact that you cannot see that this was the result of a deliberate campaign uh, boggles my mind. And all these people that are running around going, well, on the one hand, maybe it was spontaneous and it's just the kind of thing that happens. And on the other hand, maybe there was somebody or some group that pushed it forward, but gee, that's hard to tell. That's idiocy. This was an advertising campaign. This was a marketing campaign. This was a public relations campaign. You could call it a propaganda campaign. You don't need to go mind control, and MK Ultra. This was bread and butter, garden variety publicity, promotion, advertising. And for a so-called professional in the realm of social psychology not to be aware that such things exist, and hey, not to be able to see it when it was unfolding back in early 2020. I mean, it just shows you, and I don't mean to single him out, but it just shows you how dense these so-called experts are. As I said very early on into this, we are being carpet bombed by a very well-organized machine. They have the equivalent of airfields and B-52s. They have ground crews that are making sure the planes are, airworthy. They've got other guys that are loading the bombs every morning. They have other guys that are fueling the fuel tanks. They have meteorologists that are looking at the weather. They have guys figuring out the bombing runs. There is a cast of thousands involved in this. They are PR professionals. They are advertising professionals. They work for the government. They work for corporations. They work for pharma. They get up in the morning, they get a paycheck, and all they have to do is figure out what the lie of the day is and how best to put it out there. That's what we've been contending with since the beginning of this, and Brass Check listeners know this, and I don't understand why at this late date, February 4th, 2022, Brass Check listeners seem to be the only people on earth that know this. Where are the professionals? Where are the PhDs? Where are the professors? Where are the advertising and marketing and psychology professors? This shit is obvious. There's nothing controversial about it. I recently did an interview, which we're going to post below, that gives some historical context into this. But let me give you an understanding of how common the technology for inducing mass psychosis is. I'm going to give you a three-letter word. War. Okay? There is no such thing as a spontaneous war. Never has been, never will be. You don't move 1 million men across the ocean with, uniforms, feeding them, arming them, training them, deploying them in the right place at the right time. Spontaneously. Okay? That requires an insane amount of planning. Okay? That's how wars take place. They don't take place spontaneously. This nonsense that human beings are naturally aggressive and war is a natural outcome of that. Anybody that believes that is a sap. Okay? There's no such thing as a war. You might have a fist fight in a bar, yeah, but you're not gonna move 1 million guys over to the Middle East. Based on an emotional flirt. They lie to us. Oh, well, it's the Japanese. That's why we went into World War II. And Vietnam, it was the Gulf of Tonkin. And weapons of mass destruction. That's why we ended up in Iraq. Oh, and that World War I thing, that prince in Serbia got shot in a car, and that was the thing that set off World War I. Bullshit, guys. These things are planned out meticulously in advance, and they have to be. Otherwise, they wouldn't happen. You can't organize a bake sale unless people get together and figure out where it's going to be, when it's going to be, how they're going to get the word out, who's going to make the change, who's going to get the change. That's on the level of a bake sale. And people think that 1 million men are sent over in arms and deployed in various places and set to work at war because of emotion, because of just accident. No. And part of warfare, especially in the modern era, wasn't such a big deal in the old days, but in our modern era, starting around World War I, by the way, in the United States, you have to uh, do pre-planning on how you're going to get the public to go along. That's a huge part of war preparations. And while they're figuring out, okay, how are we going to move guys from this base to that base, and how physically are we going to get them over into the war zone, and how are we going to get all the weapons there, and how are we going to get the housing together, and the water, and the sanitation, and the food, and what's our strategy going to be, and what are we going to do first, and what are we going to do second, while that planning is going on, they're planning on how they're going to sell the war to us. It's not an accident. It doesn't happen spontaneously. It's not a feature or a bug of human nature. The mass psychosis is induced. And Matthias Desmet and every other person in the field of social psychology should know that. The public has to be mobilized. Otherwise, you can't get the war. And if you want to talk about mass psychosis, how about families willingly watching their boys be taken from them and sent 5,000 miles overseas to fight out something that has nothing to do with them at the risk and peril of their lives, many of them coming back in boxes or totally destroyed, right? And our answer to that is put a yellow ribbon on it, right? That's the mass psychosis, and we've had episodes of mass psychosis continuously in this country. Yeah, the COVID thing is a pretty darn big one, and they got the whole world to buy it, or they got the gullible people of the world to buy it, including a lot of people that should have known better. It was a world war, in a sense. It didn't involve shooting, but it certainly involved a lot of killing. If you don't think people that didn't get early intervention and then were thrown on respirators and given remdesivir weren't murdered, you're missing the plot here. In any event, the art and science of inducing mass psychosis for the purposes of carrying out nefarious activities is a profession. There are thousands of people, again, who get a paycheck every week for helping. They work for the Pentagon. They work for the U.S. government. They work for the news media. They work for advertising agencies. They work for PR agencies. They work in the research departments of universities. That may be why one of the reasons Matthias doesn't want to get into it, because post-World War II, and you can read this in the book called The Science of Coercion, post-World War II, 80% of all research money in the field of psychology was spent on learning how to coerce and persuade people. 80%. We could have a science of psychology that's devoted to helping people, that's making them more resilient, that's making them more creative, right? That's helping them deal with their problems. No, we have 80% of the money spent in psychology is used on learning how to coerce people. Okay, so I don't know if Matthias Desmet just never knew that, I don't. Yeah, he needs to be called out, frankly, and all the people that have interviewed him and talk about his work need to wake up and start talking to the professionals in the field, the advertising professionals, the marketing professionals. Surely there's got to be an academic retired social psychologist somewhere who can speak to this. It's crazy that it's February 4th, 2022, and we don't uh, still don't have as a basic theme of understanding and conversation in this world that the lies were planned in advance and deployed with military precision by thousands of people. Now, most of the people doing the deployment, useful idiots. Right? They've got their little degrees and they were hired as a communication specialist for the county of Oswego and, population 2. And they are just doing their job. So when I say thousands, I don't mean thousands of people knew the evil they were doing, but I'm saying That, let's look at a war, right? How many people go to war, and how many young men go to war and think it's a game? And I'm sorry to say, if the guys that have done it know it. Initially, it seems like a party, right? And then, of course, the movies are presented to make it look like this glorious, heroic enterprise, right? And then we have all the useful idiots in the country that salute the flag every time somebody decides we're going to go to war and murder people to steal their stuff, which is what war is always about. And that's what this war was about. This COVID thing was a war on us, and it was a war to steal our stuff. That's what this is. That's what war is always about. Some psychopaths get together, they see an opportunity to steal, they organize their force, they flim-flam everybody, they find legions of useful idiots, and they go to war and they try to steal everything that's nailed down. I had a wonderful talk with Vera Sharav, Holocaust survivor, outspoken opponent against pharma, and she agrees with me 100%. Yeah, the Nazis had all kinds of bizarre philosophical viewpoints. They were thieves. They were gangsters. Their whole goal was to steal. Everywhere that where do you think all the property went for all the Jews that were taken out of the country and put in the camps? It went into the pockets of Nazi party leaders because they're thieves, they're gangsters. Okay, what do you think Bill Gates is? I mean, Bill Gates, tech guy? Are you fucking kidding me? He's a fucking moron. His operating system sucks. He got every single thing wrong in the evolution of personal computing. All he did was ride the wave and enjoy a monopoly he had on the operating system. That's the only thing he ever did. And that operating system was stolen, by the way. It was developed by somebody else. Someone else pirated it, and then Gates bought it from the guy who pirated it. And that man, it's just probably a coincidence, but he was beaten to death in a bar and didn't recover. Yeah, that's history. I'm not saying that Gates had anything to do with it, but there's no intelligence in Gates other than the intelligence of evil, you know. And why is it that the only people that know that Bill Gates spent $100 million plus giving money to every news media outlet you can imagine? El País in Spain, Le Monde in France, The Guardian in the UK, National Public Radio, the Los Angeles Times in the US. $100 million in grants. You don't think you control the news media when you make that kind of grant giving? And the only place you're going to get the details about that is Brass Check. We have a colleague that went through and before the Gates Foundation woke up and realized that people were watching them, they posted all those grants on their website. Well, she downloaded them all, and we've got them, and we did a whole show about them over a year ago. All right, so this was planned. It was paid for. You had some smart people at the top, evil smart people at the top running it, and then you had thousands and thousands and thousands of useful idiot foot soldiers helping push it. And that Matthias Desmet and all the people that he's talked to can have the gall to say that this was just spontaneous and this is just the way human beings are, and yeah, we sometimes just go crazy and no one knows why. Bullshit. You should know better, and the public should be served better. So that's what I've got to say today.